The metallic snap echoed through the cold airport security room. Clack! The handcuffs locked tight around the wrists of a man in a dark suit. To the guards, he looked like any businessman stepping off a late flight. But the newspaper on the table told a different story. Ether Airways stock plunges $4.2 billion after incident on Flight 237. The man in cuffs was Marcus Ellison, 45, CEO of Civanta Security, one of the top cybersecurity firms in America. The guards stole glances at him, puzzled and uneasy. To them, he was just an uncooperative passenger. They did not realize that the man sitting before them was someone who had walked into the White House many times to advise on national security. That morning, Marcus had entered Atlanta Airport with the precision of a seasoned executive. A navy Tom Ford suit framed his solid build. His Ferragamo shoes gleamed under the lights. To strangers, he looked every inch a successful man. But none knew he had just endured 2 grueling days of negotiations for the most important deal of his life: the acquisition of quantum AI, a rising star in artificial intelligence. Behind his calm mask was the indelible scar of his youth, growing up in the poor neighborhoods of Oakland, where a young black boy worked night shifts just to pay tuition. His mother, a nurse, had once looked into his eyes and said, "Education and excellence are the only things they can never take from you." Tonight, in the bustle of an international terminal, her words still shielded him like armor. When the priority boarding call rang out, Marcus was among the first to enter first class. Seat 2A, by the window, was his. He stowed his leather briefcase overhead, opened his laptop, and began reviewing financial projections. A text lit up his screen. "Safe travels. The team was impressed with our security protocols. I think we're solid." It was from Priya Shah, his COO and partner since Stanford. Marcus smiled faintly. Success was not just numbers on contracts. It was about bringing diversity into Silicon Valley's homogeneous landscape. Quantum AI had been founded by a Nigerian engineer, a blend of global talent and the hunger to change the world. He adjusted his noise, cancelling headphones, classical music flowing as his focus sharpened. Everything seemed set until a shadow fell over his seat. "Excuse me," said a flight attendant, her badge reading Brooke Larson. Beside her stood a middle-aged man, face flushed, tie askew, eyes brimming with arrogance. "You're in my seat," the man growled. Marcus removed his headphones, calmly pulled his ticket from his jacket. "Seat 2A, reserved 3 weeks ago. This is my ticket." The man, Gregory Hale, a banking investor, sneered. "I always sit in 2A, every week, all year. I'm a diamond customer. They know me." Brooke bit her lip, fumbling. "Mr. Hale is a Diamond Elite member. There may have been a system error." Marcus met her eyes. "Perhaps, but my ticket says 2A, and I was here first." The cabin grew tense. A few passengers looked up, others buried themselves in newspapers, but everyone listened. Gregory exhaled sharply, full of disdain. "Do you know who I am? I've spent more money on this airline than you make in a year." The words cut deep. Marcus gripped the armrest, but his voice stayed steady. "I don't care who you are. This is my seat. You don't have the right to take it because you're recognized." Brooke glanced around helplessly. Moments later, Daniel Keene, the tall, salt and pepper-haired chief attendant, arrived. He did not look at Marcus. He turned directly to Gregory. "Apologies for the inconvenience, Mr. Hale. I'll take care of this." Then he faced Marcus, his tone cold. "Sir, we'd appreciate if you gave up the seat. We can move you to economy and award you bonus miles." Marcus raised his brows, his smile hardening. "You're asking me to give up a legally purchased seat so you can prioritize someone else, simply because he's a frequent flyer?" Daniel avoided his gaze. "It's how we ensure satisfaction for our most valued customers." In that moment, Marcus felt the weight of eyes pressing into him. Discomfort, curiosity, judgment. His heart pounded, heat rising. But reason held. He pulled out his phone and began recording. Gregory smirked. "You don't belong in this class. Don't waste everyone's time." Marcus lifted his head, eyes sharp as a blade. "Then let the world decide who really doesn't belong here." Another sharp click rang out. Not handcuffs this time, but the sound of a camera recording. In that instant, the board flipped. Marcus, dismissed as an obstinate passenger, was in fact the CEO of a billion-dollar cybersecurity firm, a man with the tools to stop national espionage. And tonight, he chose not to be silent. The announcement chime for cabin doors closing echoed, but the flight had already embarked on a different journey, one that would make Ether Airways pay dearly. Marcus leaned back into his seat, his eyes locked on the phone screen. In the warm, golden light of first class, his face was calm but burning with resolve. He knew there would be a cost to this defiance. But this time, he was not fighting for a seat. He was fighting for dignity. And within hours, the world would know his name, not for billion-dollar contracts, but because he refused to stand when everyone wanted him gone. The noise in first class had shifted into a tense silence. Eyes darted away, a few phones lifted discreetly. Marcus Ellison remained seated, his phone raised, capturing the anxious face of flight attendant Brooke and the arrogance of Gregory Hale. "Are you recording, sir?" Daniel Keene, the chief attendant, demanded. Marcus nodded. "Yes, I need evidence that I am being forced out of a seat I purchased legally, just to appease a VIP." Gregory's mocking laugh cut through the air. "You still don't get the rules, do you? A ticket is one thing, class is another." The words sliced like a blade. Marcus felt the muscles in his neck tighten, but he held his composure. Inside, anger churned with a familiar fatigue, the weariness of a lifetime spent proving he deserved any seat he occupied. Then a woman's voice rang from behind. "Excuse me, but why are we still arguing? His ticket clearly says 2A. That means the seat is his. End of story." It was Alana Brooks, a young black woman in seat 3C, her voice steady, her eyes unwavering. Daniel shot her a cold glance, a warning to stay silent. But murmurs spread among the passengers. The injustice was no longer private. It was on display for all to see. Marcus's heart pounded faster. He knew the confrontation was about to escalate, and it would not be pleasant. Moments later, Daniel's voice came firm and final. "This is your last chance, Mr. Ellison. If you refuse to move, we will have to call security." Marcus lifted his head. "I am not causing trouble. I am sitting in the seat I purchased. The person obstructing this flight is not me." but the man standing there. His words struck like an arrow. Gregory's face flushed crimson. Heavy footsteps echoed in the cabin. 2 security officers appeared, Raymond Ortiz and Lucas Bennett. Dark blue uniforms, cold eyes, hands resting near their belts. "Sir, please gather your belongings and come with us," Ortiz said, his voice like a saw blade. Marcus looked straight into his phone's camera, then swept his gaze across the cabin. Many passengers were recording, including a blonde woman, Tessa Nguyen, who hid her phone behind a magazine. "Can you tell me the exact reason?" Marcus asked, his voice even. Lucas replied mechanically. "You were being removed for failing to comply with crew instructions." Marcus gave a dry laugh. "Instructions? What instructions? To abandon the seat I paid for, so someone else can have it because he always sits here? Is that an instruction or favoritism?" The cabin froze. An elderly Asian man in premium economy spoke up. "That's wrong. If he has the ticket, then that's his seat." Brooke shot him a panicked glance, warning him into silence. Ortiz tightened his grip on the cuffs. "Mr. Ellison, please stand. If not, we will be forced to use restraint." Marcus inhaled deeply, then slowly closed his laptop and tucked his documents into his leather case. Every movement deliberate, giving time for every eye to take it in. His voice rang out through the cabin. "Look closely. I have a valid ticket. I have broken no rules. Yet I am being forced to leave, only because another man decided he deserves this seat more." The whispers spread like waves. Cameras trembled in unsteady hands. Ortiz stepped forward. Clack! The cold steel cuffs locked around Marcus's wrists. In that moment, every slight he had endured, from childhood scorn to boardroom doubt, compressed into a single piercing ache. Gregory brushed past him, triumphant, settling into seat 2A, as though reclaiming a throne. Marcus was led away, his steps steady, his spine unbent, his eyes fixed straight ahead. Inside, his heart roared. This time, they had chosen the wrong man to humiliate. As the cabin doors shut behind him, the first-class atmosphere shattered. Alana Brooks bowed her head, tears welling. Tessa checked her phone, ensuring the recording was saved. Gregory lifted his champagne glass, lips curled in victory. But none of them yet knew. The video just captured was the spark that would ignite a storm outside, a storm that could sweep away the oldest airline in America. Marcus walked down the narrow jetway, cuffs glinting under harsh fluorescent lights. The clicks of curious passengers' cameras thudded like drums. His heart was heavy, but his mind was clear. The real battle had just begun. And this time, he was not fighting for a seat. He was fighting to show the world the true face of favoritism. The steel door shut behind him, the metallic clang echoing like a verdict. Marcus Ellison sat on a cold metal chair in the airport security room, the red marks from the cuffs still fresh on his wrists. In front of him was a scratched table, a surveillance camera mounted on the wall. Gone was the warm golden light of first class, replaced by the harsh fluorescent glare that exposed every tense line on his face. A heavy-set man with a cropped haircut entered, his badge reading Captain Neil Archer, 50 years old. His voice was low but clipped, more like a recording than a real conversation. Mr. Ellison, we need to know why you refused to vacate the seat. That action obstructed the flight. Marcus raised his head, his eyes calm to the point of being unsettling. Why? I sat in the seat I paid for. The person obstructing the flight wasn't me. It was the man who decided my ticket was worthless because my skin color didn't match first class. Archer blinked, then looked away. He did not argue, only scribbled notes into his pad. The air grew heavier. The door opened again. A lean man entered, clutching a folder, his steps hurried. Benjamin Hayes, 40, 2, from Aether Airways Customer Relations Department. He forced a polite smile, though his eyes were shifty. Mr. Ellison, on behalf of the airline, I'm sorry for the inconvenience. We'd like to resolve this quickly. He laid a sheet of paper on the table. Marcus glanced at it. A $5,000 compensation voucher and a free upgrade on his next flight. In exchange, he would sign a confidentiality agreement, waiving all rights to file a complaint. Marcus let out a short, bitter laugh. You think my dignity is worth $5,000? I was handcuffed and dragged off like a criminal in front of hundreds of eyes and dozens of cameras. And you want to silence me that cheaply? Hayes faltered, sweat beading on his forehead. Sir, it's policy. We are not discriminatory. This was just a system error. This is the quickest way to— Marcus slammed his hand on the table, the folder trembling under the impact. An error. I saw their eyes. I heard their words of contempt. Don't call it an error. Call it what it was. Prejudice and humiliation. The room thickened with silence. Archer folded his arms. Hayes forced a smile that barely held. Marcus remained calm, dangerously calm, like the still surface of a lake hiding a storm beneath. He pulled out his phone. Despite being detained, the recording was intact. The screen lit up, showing Gregory Hale's smug face demanding seat 2A, every glance of favoritism from the crew captured in detail. Marcus turned the screen toward them, his voice low but resonant. You should know this video is already backed up to my company's cloud servers. And my company, Savanta Security, specializes in data protection. Do you think you can contain the storm when this truth spreads? Hayes's face went pale. Archer shot a quick look, then turned away. Neither spoke. Marcus leaned forward, both hands pressing against the table. Every word dropped heavy as stone. I don't need a voucher. I don't need hollow apologies. I need the truth. And if you can't face it, then I'll make sure the world does. A long pause followed. Only the ticking of the wall clock broke the silence. Hayes swallowed hard, his voice trembling. Mr. Ellison, please reconsider. If this goes public, the consequences could be serious, even for your company. Marcus's mouth curved, his first cold smile breaking through. Consequences? You're right. But believe me, the ones who will face them most won't be me. Outside, passengers were already passing clips among themselves. On social media, the hashtag #SkylineDown had begun climbing the trending charts. What no one knew was that inside this locked room, Marcus Ellison had just made a decision to turn personal humiliation into a storm of justice. And when that door opened again, The world would no longer see just a businessman in handcuffs. They would see a CEO who had transformed insult into his most powerful weapon. That night, the 27th floor of Cyvanta Security's Atlanta headquarters glowed brightly against the city. In the glass-walled conference room overlooking the skyline, Marcus Ellison sat at the head of the table. In front of him was no longer the quantum AI acquisition file, but a giant screen replaying the moment he was dragged out of first class in handcuffs. The voice echoed once again. "You don't belong here. Don't waste everyone's time." Gregory Hale's words cut deep, like a blade reopening an old wound. The air in the room was so tense that even a pin drop would have been deafening. Priya Shah, COO, slammed her pen onto the table. Unbelievable. They stripped off their mask completely. If this clip goes public, Ether will collapse in a single night. Leo Carter, the usually calm CMO, could not hold back this time. This isn't just about a seat. It's the message that a black man, even a CEO, can be dismissed like anyone else. The public won't forgive them. Marcus stayed silent. He leaned back, his eyes fixed on the footage of himself being escorted out. The blue uniforms pressing against his shoulders dragged him back to childhood memories, being followed by supermarket guards for no reason other than the color of his skin. But he was no longer that powerless boy. Mei Lin, CTO, leaned forward, her voice firm. "Marcus, we have the data. The social team is tracking it. In the past 2 hours alone, over 3 million views have come from passengers' clips. The hashtag Skyline Down is already top 5 nationwide on Twitter. And it's still rising." Priya added quickly, "We have a golden chance to turn this into a full investigation. I want to set up a secure portal, a place where anyone who has faced discrimination on Ether can submit evidence." Marcus turned to her, and in his tired eyes there was a spark of resolve. "Do it now. This is not just about me. It's about everyone who has ever been forced out of a seat, out of a place they deserved." The door burst open, and Olivia Grant, legal counsel, walked in, her face grave. "I just got the call. Ether has placed you on their no-fly list. Effective immediately, you cannot use their services." A murmur swept the room. Leo's voice rose in outrage. "Retaliation? This is an admission of guilt." Olivia dropped a thick file on the table. "They think they can pressure us into silence, but this move will cost them even more. Marcus, the question is, how do you want to respond? Go straight to the media or gather enough to bring them down for good?" Marcus stood, walking to the glass wall. The city below glowed like a living map. He placed his hand on the cool surface, as if in conversation with himself. "For years I've proven I can sit in any seat, but tonight they turned a seat into a symbol. If we think only of personal revenge, it becomes nothing more than payback. I want more. I want to change the system." He turned back, his voice cutting like steel. "We're not rushing to the press. First, we dig to the roots. How many customers were forced out because of their skin color? How many reports were buried? I want numbers, evidence, names. Tonight, we begin." The room fell into silence for a moment. Then one by one, heads nodded. Priya opened her laptop, her fingers flying across the keys. Mei Lin dialed her technical team. Olivia drafted the framework for a class action lawsuit. Only Leo kept staring at the screen, where the image of Marcus in handcuffs replayed yet again. He muttered under his breath, heavy with conviction. They don't know. They just picked the wrong man to humiliate. Marcus returned to his seat. He took a sip of water, the metallic taste of the afternoon's cuffs still lingering on his lips. Inside him, the anger had transformed into something else. A plan, a campaign, a storm. And this time, it would not be just Ether Airways, but the entire world that would be forced to relearn the meaning of one word, justice. The next morning, the Atlanta sky was heavy and grey, clouds hanging low as if warning of a storm. Marcus Ellison walked into the grand lobby of Ether Airways headquarters with Priya Shah and Olivia Grant. The towering glass skyscraper gleamed with wealth and power, every detail designed to impress. The receptionist gave a strained smile, bowed slightly, then quickly picked up the phone. Minutes later, an assistant arrived to escort them to the top floor. The elevator shot upward, the air inside thick with tension. Priya leaned close and whispered, "Are you sure you want to face them directly now? We haven't released the evidence yet." Marcus kept his eyes fixed on the rising numbers on the display. "Yes. Let them reveal their true nature before the world sees it." The boardroom opened. A long walnut table stretched beneath golden lights. Waiting inside were three figures. Harold Whitaker, the 61-year-old CEO, hair silvered and styled, skin bronzed from golf courses. Miriam Cole, the 54-year-old legal counsel, eyes sharp as blades. And Victor Lang, the 47-year-old PR director, iPad clutched in hand. "Mr. Ellison." Whitaker rose with a cold smile, extending his hand. "Thank you for coming. We'd like to resolve the little incident from yesterday." Marcus did not shake his hand. He sat down, his eyes sweeping the room like ice. A little incident? Forcing a paying customer out of his seat, handcuffing him, humiliating him in front of hundreds. If that's a little incident, then your dictionary is severely lacking. Miriam cut in smoothly. "We do not deny there was confusion, but let me stress, there was no racial element involved. It was merely staff trying to prioritize a loyal customer. We want a quick settlement to avoid unnecessary noise." Victor slid a folder across the table. Inside was an offer. $50,000 in flight credits, lifetime Diamond Elite status, and a personal letter of apology. In exchange, strict confidentiality. Priya's eyes blazed. Olivia's pen gripped tight, but Marcus only gave a dry laugh. "Interesting. So my dignity is worth a luxury membership and a few free flights?" Whitaker lifted his hand, still playing the role of persuader. "You're a businessman. You understand the value of practical solutions. This is how everyone moves on peacefully. No one wants a small incident to escalate into a national crisis." Marcus leaned forward, his voice low but sharp as a knife. "You're mistaken, Whitaker. This already is a national crisis, and do you know why? Because I have the numbers. 27 black passengers removed from first class in the past year. Only 3 white passengers faced the same. Is that an incident or a system?" A flicker of unease crossed Miriam's face. Victor's head shot up, startled. "Where did you get that data?" Marcus only shrugged, eyes blazing. "I run a cybersecurity company. Did you think I would just sit quietly and let my boarding pass be torn apart? Whitaker's jaw tightened, his forced smile cracking. His tone hardened. Ellison, be realistic. Ether Airways is a global giant with powerful connections. If you turn this into a personal crusade, your company's reputation will be dragged down too. Many of Sivanta's partners are our loyal clients. It was a threat wrapped in velvet. Marcus leaned back, his gaze cutting cold. You don't understand. I am not looking for compensation. I am demanding change. I want policy reform, independent oversight, public apologies, and restitution for every person treated as I was. If not, I will let the stock market, the press, and the courts teach you the cost of contempt. The room fell silent. Victor swallowed hard. Miriam looked away. Whitaker pressed his palms on the table, leaning forward, his voice dropping to a hiss. Careful, Ellison. If you declare war on Ether, we will not sit idle. We have resources. We have allies. You do not want to drag yourself and your company into this. Marcus rose slowly, folding the file and sliding it back across the table. His words were steady, sharp, like hammer blows. Then prepare yourselves, Whitaker. You've just chosen war. Priya and Olivia followed him out. The door slammed shut behind them, leaving 3 pale faces inside. In the elevator down, Priya exhaled. They'll strike back. You just declared war on a giant. Marcus stared at his own reflection in the mirror. His expression calm, but his eyes blazing with resolve. No. I just opened a battle they started the moment they forced me out of that seat, and I will end it in a way they never expected. Outside, the Atlanta sky remained grey. But inside Marcus Ellison, a storm had already begun to form, a storm that would sweep away an empire of arrogance. That night, Marcus Ellison returned to his hotel in downtown Atlanta. The carpeted hallway was quiet, golden light spilling across still. Life paintings on the wall, everything appearing peaceful. But when he opened the door, he froze. There was no sound, nothing obviously out of place. Yet the eyes of a seasoned security professional saw it instantly. The desk lamp slightly askew, a drawer left just barely open, a faint smudge of a handprint on his suitcase. He set his briefcase down, his heartbeat slow but heavy. Instinct screamed. Someone had been in the room. Marcus immediately checked his laptop. The startup lagged unnaturally, the login screen showing traces of multiple failed attempts. He drew a deep breath, opened his leather case, and his chest tightened. The quantum AI file was gone. It held everything: the acquisition strategy, the core technology, and sensitive data powerful enough to tip the balance of an upcoming national security contract. He called Mei Lin, CTO, without hesitation. Someone broke in. I need the cyber team here now. Half an hour later, 4 Sivanta engineers arrived with hotel security. They swept every inch of the room. The results chilled the air. 2 miniature microphones hidden under the desk, a rechargeable pinhole camera fixed above the doorway, and spyware implanted in the laptop. Priya burst into the room, her eyes blazing. This isn't about discrimination anymore. This is corporate espionage. Marcus nodded, his voice low. They didn't just want to humiliate me in public. They wanted to break the quantum AI deal and hand the advantage to Stratos Aerospace. Later that night, his phone rang from an unknown number. A firm but hushed female voice came through. "Mr. Ellison, this is Rachel Monroe, investigative reporter with the Atlanta Tribune. I've been tracking Ether Airways for months. I have proof. What happened to you yesterday wasn't random. You were placed on their watch list. Your name was added just 3 weeks ago." Marcus gripped the phone. "You're certain?" Rachel's reply was sharp. "I have the internal memo. If you agree to meet, I'll show you." At 2 in the morning, in a closed cafe, Rachel slid across a blurred stack of papers. The Ether logo glared at the top of each page. A long list of names, startup founders, technology experts, executives from rival firms. And in the middle, Ellison, Marcus, Delay, Monitor, marked in red. Marcus flipped further, his pulse pounding like a drum. The final note froze Priya and Mei-Lin where they sat. Objective: delay quantum AI acquisition. Priority: protect Stratos interests. Rachel met his eyes. "Now you see. This was never about a seat. It's a war of power and money, and race is the cover they use." Marcus sat motionless for a moment, as though all the pieces had finally locked into place. The public humiliation, the hotel intrusion, and now the company memo. What filled him was no longer just anger, but a cold, deliberate resolve. His voice was steady, his eyes alight. "They thought they could silence me with fear. Instead, they've handed me the most powerful weapon: truth." Priya looked at him, her voice breaking but firm. "Marcus, then we have no choice. This is war." Marcus nodded slowly, with certainty. "Then prepare. Tomorrow, we won't just be facing Ether Airways. We'll be facing the empire behind them." And for the first time in years, Marcus Ellison felt his blood surge, not from insult, but from the knowledge that he was about to shake an entire system to its core. That morning at the Four Seasons Atlanta, the lobby was packed with reporters. Cameras lined up like a wall, flashes exploding non-stop. The air buzzed with tension, the restless hum before a storm. From CNN and the Washington Post to independent bloggers, they had all gathered. They were not there for a simple explanation about a passenger dispute. They wanted to witness a CEO standing up against an entire airline empire. The doors opened. Marcus Ellison appeared, dressed in a dark suit, his eyes blazing though his face remained calm. Behind him walked Priya Shah and Olivia Grant, his two most trusted allies. They stepped up to the podium, facing hundreds of lenses. Marcus cleared his throat, and in that instant, the room fell silent. 3 days ago, he began, his voice resonant, I sat in seat 2A on an Ether Airways flight, a valid seat, fully paid. Yet I was forced to vacate it for someone deemed more important. And when I refused, they handcuffed me like a criminal. He paused, letting the words sink into every ear. The giant screen behind him lit up. The footage played. Gregory Hale sneering, Daniel Keene leaning into pressure, and Marcus calmly holding his ground. The dialogue was unmistakable, the disdain in their eyes undeniable. The final words rang through the hall. You don't belong here. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Cameras flashed wildly, jaws dropped. Marcus raised his hand to steady the room before continuing. This was not an isolated incident. My team has gathered evidence of 47 cases over the past 18 months where black passengers were forced out of their seats to appease others. Today, I am making them public." Olivia held up the files. Charts, internal emails, and staff testimonies filled the screen, exposing a pattern of systemic bias. But Marcus was not finished. He displayed the memo Rachel Monroe had provided, the Ether logo clear at the top. Objective: delay quantum AI acquisition. Priority: protect Stratos aerospace interests. The room erupted. A reporter from NBC nearly leapt from his chair. "Mr. Ellison, are you alleging that Ether Airways not only engaged in racial discrimination, but colluded with your competitor in corporate espionage?" Marcus looked directly into the cameras, his voice sharp as steel. "Yes. They used my race as cover for a larger conspiracy to steal data and sabotage a strategic deal. And this is no longer a personal matter. This is an issue of justice and national security." The press room exploded. Questions rained down. "Will you sue them? What changes are you demanding? Do you expect the government to intervene?" Marcus lifted his hand, waiting for silence. "I am not seeking vouchers. I do not need a diamond membership. I need accountability. Today we are officially filing a class action lawsuit against Ether Airways, and we are calling on the Department of Justice to launch a full investigation into Nova Vista Holdings, their parent company." The hum of cameras roared like a hive of bees. Yet in the midst of it, Marcus felt a different kind of silence, the weight of collective agreement. As he stepped down from the podium, the hashtag #SkylineDown exploded across social media. Twitter, Facebook, TikTok flooded with messages. Finally, someone stood up. This isn't about a seat, it's a fight for dignity. Ellison is not just fighting for himself, he's fighting for all of us. On the 42nd floor of Ether headquarters, Harold Whitaker gripped his chair, watching the live broadcast. Sweat trickled down his temple. Miriam Cole whispered, "We must strike back now. If not, within days, the stock will collapse." But in Marcus's eyes as he left the press room, there was no triumph. Only the steady gaze of a man who had unleashed a storm and knew the real battle had only just begun. Just one day after the press conference, the media storm had exploded. But the giant did not sit quietly and take the blows. Ether Airways counterattacked with every weapon at its disposal. On CNN that morning, an emergency ad played. Smiling flight attendants, black passengers, sitting comfortably in first class, a banner scrolling across the screen. "We have always valued diversity." Hastily produced, forced and unbelievable. But that was only the surface. Behind the scenes, Victor Lang, Ether's PR chief, played a more ruthless game. Anonymous sources began leaking to financial outlets. Civanta is facing a cash flow crisis. Ellison staged this to cover up a failed deal. By afternoon, the Financial Observer ran the headline, "Marcus Ellison, Justice Warrior or Desperate PR Stunt." In Civanta's boardroom, the air was leaden. Priya Shah slammed the paper down on the table. "They're fabricating lies. If this spreads, shareholders will panic." Maylin swiped across her tablet, code scrolling across the screen. "It's not just the press. They're running a cyber attack. I've tracked dozens of anonymous bots flooding Twitter, spreading claims that Marcus harassed staff, that Sivanta's security is weak. This is a coordinated campaign." Olivia Grant frowned tightly. "And worse. I just got notice. 2 government agencies have ordered reviews of our security contracts. Clearly, Ether is leveraging its connections to put pressure on us." Marcus sat still, eyes fixed ahead. Childhood memories rose, the times he was doubted, excluded, cast aside because of where he came from. He knew this feeling too well, a system conspiring to break him. That evening, back at his apartment, Marcus turned on the TV. A familiar face appeared. Gregory Hale, the man who stole Seat 2A, speaking on a financial channel. His voice was calm, laced with arrogance. "I'm not saying Ellison didn't deserve to sit in first class. But there are unwritten rules. People need to understand how this game works. Some people, it's just not their time to be there." Marcus clenched his jaw. Those words, broadcast nationwide, were the rawest proof of arrogance. And in that moment, he knew such arrogance would destroy itself. Late into the night, Sivanta's crisis team convened over video conference. The glow of the screens lit up weary but determined faces. Priya spoke first. "Marcus, we have 2 options. 1, hit back immediately, release the heaviest evidence we have. 2, stay silent, and let the legal process work. But silence means letting Ether control the narrative." Mei Lin cut in. "We just uncovered an internal Ether email. It says clearly, if Hale wants the seat, apply the special procedure. Make sure no one stands in the way. If we publish this, it's a bombshell." Olivia hesitated. "But if we rush it, they'll countersue for disclosing classified data. We need strategy, not emotion." All eyes turned to Marcus. He sat with arms crossed, silent for a few seconds. Then he spoke slowly. "They've thrown mud at us, but mud cannot bury the truth. We will not answer with mud. We will show the world their true face, layer by layer." He rose and walked to the glass window, the city lights blazing below. His voice was low, firm. "Tomorrow, we launch a public reporting platform for airline victims. People will share their stories, and I swear, when the numbers rise high enough, no power in the world will be able to deny it." His eyes flashed, reflecting the city lights. The storm Ether had unleashed was now turning into a tidal wave, set to sweep across the nation. The next morning, the portal Mei Lin and her tech team built overnight went live. Within hours, hundreds of people had submitted their stories. By the end of the day, the number had surpassed 10,000 responses. On the giant screen in Sivanta's boardroom, the words scrolled too fast to read. "I was forced out of my first-class seat, even though I had checked in early, just because a diamond customer showed up late." They said, "She must have bought the wrong ticket right in front of the whole cabin." I'm a veteran, but the flight attendant told me I was in the wrong seat, even though my ticket was crystal clear. Priya covered her mouth, her eyes shining. "Marcus, this isn't just a personal story anymore. This is a movement." On social media, the hashtag #SkylineDown merged with #ExecutiveWhileBlack and erupted into a storm. New videos appeared constantly, passengers secretly filming flight attendants, showing bias, airport staff casually letting VIPs cut in line. One interview in particular captured the nation's attention. Tessan Nguyen, the passenger who had recorded Marcus's ordeal, spoke with conviction. "I saw it with my own eyes. They didn't treat Mr. Ellison like a customer, but like someone sitting where he didn't belong. And when he stood up for his legal rights, they turned him into a criminal. I didn't record for views. I recorded because I knew if this was buried, the next time it would happen to someone else." The clip went viral, drawing millions of views. Even more shocking, a wave of former Ether Airways employees began to speak out. One ex-flight attendant, Hannah Rivera, declared on video, "We were quietly trained that if a VIP was unhappy, we should rearrange the seating, and most of the time, the ones being rearranged were black passengers. I spoke up once, and the result was being reassigned, then forced out." Her testimony tore apart the flimsy facade of diversity and equity that Ether was trying desperately to project. National media pounced. CNN ran a red banner. Ether Airways faces accusations of systemic racism. The Washington Post published an editorial. "It's not just about a seat, it's about the right to be respected." Within 72 hours, Ether's stock price had dropped another 18%, leaving major shareholders panicked. A pension fund publicly demanded the airline replace its leadership. Across town, in a boardroom flooded with camera lights, Ether CEO Harold Whitaker shouted at his directors, "We have to stop this flood. Pour more money into Blackwood Pios, hire more lawyers, launch a campaign about black success with Ether." But Miriam Cole, legal counsel, only shook her head, her voice taut as a wire. "It won't work anymore. This is no longer a PR story. This is a social movement. And unless we take real action, we will lose everything." Whitaker slammed the table, but the fear in his eyes betrayed him. He knew his empire was cracking. At Civanta, Marcus Ellison stood before the glass wall, staring out at the city lights glowing like a sea of stars. He spoke softly, to himself and to his team. "They thought I was fighting for one seat. But now, we're fighting for an entire generation of silenced passengers. This is not just my fight. This is everyone's." Priya stepped forward, her voice trembling with pride. "Marcus, you've started a movement, and now the whole country is standing with you." Marcus closed his eyes and drew a deep breath. He knew the days ahead would be brutal. Ether had not yet played its final cards. But this time, he was no longer alone. And when a storm transforms into the tide of a society, no empire can stand against it. The following month, Washington, D.C. became the center of attention. The congressional hearing room was packed, camera flashes blazing, television crews broadcasting live to millions of viewers. At the witness table sat Harold Whitaker, CEO of Ether Airways, his face pale, his once polished silver hair now in disarray. "Mr. Whitaker." Congresswoman Patricia Lee's voice was cold and sharp. "This internal document clearly states priority to reassign seats for VIP passengers if necessary. In the training examples, the majority of those displaced were black passengers. How do you explain this?" Whitaker swallowed hard, sweat beading on his forehead. That was simply a misunderstanding in training. There has never been a racial policy." Lee slammed the desk. Then why do the numbers show that black passengers are 8 times more likely to be forced out of their seats compared to white passengers? This is no longer an incident. This is a systemic pattern. Murmurs of outrage swept through the chamber. Cameras zoomed in on Whitaker's darting eyes and trembling lips. Outside, thousands had gathered, raising banners high. Respect every passenger. The crowd's chants rolled like waves across the avenue. Among them stood former Ether employees, passengers who had spoken out, and numerous civil rights groups. In Sivanta's temporary Washington office, Marcus Ellison and his team watched the hearing live. As Whitaker squirmed and deflected, Marcus said quietly, "He's digging his own grave." Priya nodded, her eyes burning bright. The shareholders won't forgive him. They've already lost nearly $4.2 billion in market value, and the losses keep piling up. She was right. Just a week after the hearing, Ether Airways board convened in a 14-hour emergency session. That night, a press release shook the industry. Harold Whitaker had resigned as CEO. 5 board members stepped down with him, and a new leader was appointed, Denise Rowland, 49 years old, the first black woman CEO in the company's history. The news stunned the aviation industry. Other airlines scrambled to announce reviews of their customer policies, desperate to avoid being dragged into the storm. On the day of the settlement signing, Ether's headquarters atrium overflowed with reporters. Marcus stood beside Denise Rowland, his face solemn but his eyes alight. "On behalf of the plaintiffs," Marcus declared, "we accept the settlement of $20 million. But more importantly, Ether has committed to sweeping reforms, mandatory training on implicit bias, an independent oversight board with the power to audit and publish quarterly reports, an end to disguised VIP priority practices, a binding commitment to respect every passenger's rights, regardless of race." Applause filled the hall. Denise Rowland stepped forward, her voice firm. "We accept responsibility, and from today forward, Ether will be a model of fairness, not a symbol of prejudice." That evening, back at Sivanta's offices, Marcus sat alone before the glass window, the city lights glowing beneath him. Priya entered gently and asked, "How do you feel? It's victory, isn't it?" Marcus smiled, a quiet, weary smile. "This isn't my victory alone. It is a message to the entire industry. Dignity cannot be bought. If they want to survive, they must change." He closed his eyes, drawing a deep breath, feeling the soft breeze drift through the window. His heart still carried the scar from the day he was handcuffed in public. But now, that scar had become his weapon. And when one person dares to rise, an entire system is forced to bow and change. Marcus Ellison's story does not end with a settlement, but begins with a powerful reminder. Justice always comes with a price, but dignity is priceless. A first-class seat can become a symbol, and when one person dares to stand up and claim his rightful place, he is not only holding that seat for himself, but for millions of others. If you believe respect belongs to everyone, hit like, subscribe so you won't miss the next stories, and leave your comment with the short phrase, "Stand up." Because sometimes changing an entire system begins with a single act, the refusal to stand up when you are already sitting in the seat that is rightfully yours.